Welcome to a video about making Space Invaders in C#. This is just going to create a very basic framework for Space Invaders, but this is what we're going to be doing in the video. So, first of all, we're going to look at the flow chart of the game. So we're going to make or look at a flow chart which describes what should be happening as we work our way through the game, the kind of things that we may need to make decisions about, like whether or not the game is over, whether or not a bullet hits something, those kinds of things. Everybody loves a flowchart. And events and handling events. So for example, when I hit a key like, I don't know, the fire key or the I need to move left key or right key, what we can do with handling events. We'll also cover creating variables, and we've talked about variables as a type of a box maybe that we just chuck stuff in. So when we create a variable, we can store things inside the variable, kind of like a box with a label on the side, the label being the name of the variable. And we can store different types of things inside this box, different data types being things like strings and ints, that kind of thing. Creating functions and methods. We've talked about functions and methods as being things that just do stuff for us, and we can create different types of functions and methods and kind of treat them like little minions that run away and do something for us and then come back maybe and tell us an answer, or maybe they just do something and we trust that they do it, but we can make different types and they do different things, and we're going to see how we can create functions and methods to play Space Invaders. Okay, so this is just a brief look at what we're going to be making. So here's our Space Invaders game. I can shift my guy around a little bit. I can shoot at my aliens and miss horribly. You can see my aliens aren't moving quite correctly. We've deliberately left that in there just to kind of give you a little challenge to complete. So that's kind of how the framework is going to look when you get it at the end of this video. It's going to be basic, but you can extend it. Okay, so this is my example solution where we're going to be developing Space Invaders. Just so you know, all I did was I went File, New Project, and I chose a Windows Form application. We've been doing console applications. Now we're going to kind of for the visual stuff with the kind of user interface aspect to it, Windows Form application. I gave it a sensible name and clicked OK. One more thing, there is also there's the code side of this, and there is the designer side of this. So if you right click on this, you can see view code or view designer. You can open them up in separate tabs and kind of switch back and forth between them as well. I selected this window and I changed its background color away from the kind of hideous color that it was. That's not the right one. Where is it? Back color, there we go. Back color away from kind of, I think it was a dark gray, something like that, and I changed it to black just because it's going to contrast a lot better with the colors that I'm thinking of using. And you will have to choose your color scheme and make sure that your color scheme works and your background color is going to be a part of that, so you can change that like that. Okay, so we're going to start looking at our flowchart. I've written up the flowchart. It might look a little bit different to how you envisaged it. You don't necessarily need to follow exactly this, but this is how I've kind of broken it down. You can attack programming problems from multiple angles and solve the problem multiple ways, but this is the way I've chosen to do it. So if we have a look, so first of all we're beginning, then I'm creating my ship. Seems reasonable. What should I do next? How about I create the aliens? Very good. So this is the kind of setup stuff that we're going to do first. Seems reasonable. Okay, so what happens next? Okay, so we have these two timers that we're going to use in this game. And every timer tick, every time the timer clicks over, it's kind of like a loop. It runs through. Yeah, so it performs all the actions inside that timer. Okay, and we've got two timers, one that ticks really fast and performs its actions really quickly, and one that ticks a little bit slower and performs its actions less regularly, less frequently. Okay, so we've got game timer and slow timer. Now, the reason we have those two is we want two things to happen at kind of two different paces. We want to move those aliens nice and quick, so we get them moving across the screen in a nice fluid motion. But when they shoot our ship, when they shoot at us, we want that to happen a little bit less regularly. We want that to happen a little bit slower. Okay, so we've got another timer in there that shoots at our ship. So I've left that kind of open to your interpretation whether or not that should check anything before it loops back through that timer. So that's up to you to have a think about. Okay, so game timer. Ooh. So first of all, we've got it moving the aliens. After we move those aliens across a couple of, like say 10 pixels, we want to check something. We want to check whether or not they're still in the bounds of the screens. Because if they're starting to move out the side of the screens, we probably want to do something about that. So we check, are they in bounds? Or is their position less than the width of the screen, for example? Might be how it looks in code. If the answer is no, then we probably want to reverse their direction. So they were traveling left to right. Now we want them to travel right to left, like go back the other way. Kind of makes sense. If they are in bounds, then we're fine. We can just move on. We want to move the aliens first, and now we're moving the bullets. So the aliens have shifted across a few pixels. The bullets who have, traveled from my ship up towards the aliens, we need to move those up towards the aliens one step. So that seems reasonable. We want to move my ship. If I'm moving left or right, we want to shove me across a little bit in the direction that the player has indicated they would like to go. We need to check something. Yeah, we need to check if the ship is in bounds, because if the player has indicated they want to go right, but they've run out of screen to go right in, we kind of need to do something about that. So if yes, if they are in bounds, then we're pretty happy. We'll continue on. If no, then we've got a little minion, we've got a little method that nudges us back into the playing realm. Okay, so that's all that method does, is it nudges it back. Next, we want to check, have there been any hits? Did any aliens get hit? Did we get hit? Was there any damage dealt? What should we do as a result? Okay, so that's another minion. Little check hits, just kind of checks everybody in the game and says, oh, are you all right? Did you get hit? Oh, I'm sorry, mate, you're dead. Off you go. That kind of thing. So if an alien was hit, no, then we're happy. We're looping back up and we're waiting for the next tick of the game timer when we run back through this again. But if an alien was hit, we're going to remove that alien, and there is a minion for that. Well, we're going to write one. Yeah, a little method called remove alien. We probably need to check if we've removed an alien, are all of the aliens gone? Like if they've all gone, we've kind of won, and we need to do something about that. If they're not all gone, we are pretty happy, and we can, continue on our merry way, and we'll loop back through. But if they are all gone, we need to do something about that. We probably have a method saying game over, and it just tidies up all the variables it needs to, and kind of establishes that the game's over, we can all stop playing and maybe display something and play a bit of music or whatever. Okay, so that's generally how the game will go and how it looks in terms of a flowchart. Now there's one thing that we haven't thought about, and that is, what about like the key presses from the user? Like they're controlling the ship. So when they hit left, it moves left, and when they hit right, it moves right, that kind of thing. Well, those things are called events, and they kind of happen outside of the normal flow of the game. They kind of just, boom, happen, which is why they kind of get the boom little graphic. So a key press has happened, and it gets handled by an event handler, and we're going to look at how we can code that. So when somebody hits the spacebar, a bullet is created. We know about moving those bullets once they have been created and all of that kind of stuff, and checking if something's been hit by it. We're all happy with that. But actually creating that bullet when the spacebar is hit, that is an event. Okay, and it operates slightly differently to what we're talking about in here. Okay, as well as the A, which is been designated as move left. D, which has been designated as move right, and it continuously kind of moves the ship. And to stop the ship in its place, we're going to designate that S, which I haven't listed for some unknown reason. Okay, so we're going to start coding. The first thing that I want to intro you to is an event which is really intrinsic to making Windows Forms applications, and that is what happens when the form is loaded. Okay, so the form loads and it's a big event and everybody is happy, and we can do things for it. Now, we've talked about events over on the left hand side, and this one's slightly different from those ones because it's part of the system or part of the Windows Form kind of background. So usually you have to make you have to subscribe to an event, and then you make an event handler, which is this thing, or a handler method. We just have to make the method because the event subscription is kind of already in the background of Visual Studio. So when the form loads, we can do some stuff. So that's really useful, and we might do some stuff like, I don't know, begin game, and then we can have a little method which kind of sets everything up, and we'd be pretty happy with that. Or maybe because we looked at our flowchart and we're like, oh yeah, we created a ship and we created our aliens when we first started off. So maybe we're going to create ship and create aliens. Now I would have to go away and write these methods, okay? Now they're underlined because I've said they exist and they don't. Yep, so I'd have to go away and write them, but I just wanted to intro you to this concept. We're going to stick with events for the moment, and I'm going to run over these events here, the key press events. Okay, so we're going to run over those. So what we're going to look at is the key press event, and I just want to make you aware of where I'm kind of getting a lot of my info from. So Microsoft has some pretty good documentation to help support C# and to help support Visual Studio. So if you want to, you can kind of search through the Microsoft documentation. You can see down here to subscribe to events programmatically. You have the handle custom event, the object sender, the custom event args, and then you do something with those arguments, that A and there. And you also have to have that handle custom event subscribe to an event in another section of code. And we would write that in as well. And we're going to see how we do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subscribe to a key press. So I go this dot key press, and you see I could do it on key down as well, or key up. So when the key is pushed down or the key is released, is also used for events that we might want to know about. So if the key is released, we're going to stop moving, or things like that. So key press plus equals, and I can hit tab, press tab to insert. So if I hit tab, it completes it for me and inserts the event handler code as well, okay, which is really useful. Lovely. So I typed in this dot key press plus equals, and then I hit tab, and it created that form 1 key press, which matches the form 1 key press name for this method. Okay, and it created all of this for me, wrote in the arguments that I would need, so I didn't have to worry about that. And now I'm going to delete this. Write whatever you want to happen on a key press in here. That's where your code goes. So you can say, okay, so for example, we can write, say, F. Now what are we do here? We're getting this key press event argument. Yeah, and we've called it E, or the system has called it E for us. So if E dot, and we can get a whole lot of things. If the key character, and we probably want to convert that to a string just to be sure. If the 2-string version of that is equal to the space command, i.e. spacebar, which is what that is, then we want to do some stuff. What do we want to do? It's not really liking that. I'm not 100% sure why. Represent sets a series of Unicode. Operator cannot be applied to operands type, method, group, and string. I know what I've messed up. I'm hoping you know what I've messed up as well. I've called this method to string, but I haven't included any brackets. Those brackets, those parentheses, they indicate that that is a method. They're really important. If you don't put those in, you're basically saying this is an attribute or a variable. Yeah, that is a method. That is a variable. Method, variable. Okay, so if e.keychar to string is equal to spacebar, what do we want to do? Well, we want to create a bullet. That was what we kind of thought would be a good idea. Spacebar was going to create a bullet. So we're going to have a method called create bullet. And we need to write that. But we're kind of happy with it being starting off like this. So we're going to have to create that bullet. If e.keychar dot toString, yeah, we need to do the toString, and it's a method, yes, we now know that, equals, what else was there? If it equals a, well, if it equals a, we need to do some stuff as well. Now, we're not 100% sure how we're going to do movement yet. We haven't discussed it, so I'm just going to leave that for the moment, and we'll leave our events stuff for the moment, and we're going to start talking about how we're going to make the rest of the system work and the variables that we're going to use to do that. Okay, so the first method that we have here is create ship. So why don't we start there? I'm going to make this private, which means that things in my program outside of this file can't just kind of get in there and run it without my permission. Void means that it doesn't need to return anything at the end of its process. I could make that int, or I could make it string, or whatever I wanted it to bring back. So if you think of that minion kind of running away and doing a job, if you need him to bring something back, if you need him to return an answer because you've given him a maths problem to solve, or something like that, then you need him to bring something back to you. Yeah, 2 plus 2 equals 4. Thank you, minion. That's very appreciative. So private void, he's not bringing anything back. Create ship, and we give him a couple of curly brackets to signify where he begins and ends. So he's creating a ship. So with this ship, we're going to create something called a picture box, yeah, which is a little, as the name kind of indicates, a little picture box on the screen, and we can control its size and its location and things like that. It's got lots of attributes that we can control. So picture box, we'll call it ship, equals new picture box, and there we go. Cool, we've created a picture box. Now we need to kind of set it up though. Alright, so ship, oh yeah, because we've made a picture box called ship, that's its name, so we can refer to it by its name. So ship dot, and all of these things here are things that we can do with this picture box. Okay, and there are a lot. We're not going to discuss them all because that would be silly. I'm going to say ship.name equals, let's call it ship. Okay, very unimaginative. Other things that we need to know, ship.location, okay, equals, now we kind of want to know the display data around this. I'm going to have to go away and have a little look at that because I can't remember how it's done, but so I'm just going to delete that for the moment. We'll do something else. So let's go ship.size. Let's declare its size. Now size is a bit weird because you have to go ship.size equals new size new size, and then we can make it 20 by 20. It's a bit of a strange way of declaring size, but that's the way we do it. Okay, what else do we need to know? We need to know location, we need to know color. Let's set its color. Ship dot color, back color equals color, and capitals, dots, what color do we want it to be? Let's make it a nice red color. And, ooh, pale violet red. How can I not? Okay. So we made it pale violet red. I'm not entirely sure what it's going to look like, but we will find out soon. And I need to go away and have a little think about how to declare its location, and then we'll do that. So I figured out how to do the location. It's a little bit tricky. It's similar to this size thing up here, in that when I go ship dot location, so all of these picture boxes have these different attributes like name, size, back color, location. And for location, we need to make it a point object. And then we can say where on the screen in terms of the X and the Y I would like it to be. 0, 0 is at the top left of the corner of the screen. So I'm going to do something slightly clever and go this dot width. I'm going to get the width of the screen and I'm going to divide it by 2 to put it in the middle for the X. And I'm going to go this dot height. And I'm going to minus maybe 100 off that just to get it a little bit above the bottom of the screen. And we're going to see if that works. Let's have a little looky. Okay, so there's nothing on my screen, and I think I know why. The major reason is we forgot to add our new picture box to this thing called controls. Controls dot add, and I add my picture box called ship, and let's give that a try. Okay, it's still not there. I'm going to have to go away and have a little think as to why that is. So it turns out that there was something wrong with this Form 1 load. I put in this message box dot show creating ship, which should have loaded and been shown if it was creating my ship, if we were getting into this part of our code, and it was never appearing, so something was going wrong. And it's something in here. These message box tests can be quite useful to figure out where things are going wrong. Now, what I've come to learn is that I typed this Form 1 load in. I typed it in manually, but there's a few background things that need to happen before that kind of works. So if I go to the design side of my files and I double click on my Form 1, when you double click on a control item, so for instance a button that might be here, you double click on that, you double click on the form, code for that particular thing is created. So for instance here, this has been inserted as well as the code that is needed in the background. In the files that I'm not viewing that help the program run, code that is needed for this particular function to work well in these files is also created. So that double click is kind of necessary. So all of these bits and pieces here should actually be in here. Okay, and let's give that a try. And I'm just going to comment this stuff out. And for a multi-line comment, it's like so. And we'll save and start it up. And there you can see my message box has come up. So we're getting into that Form 1. And there is my pale violet ship. So we've had success. So it's worth remembering those kind of errors that we ran into. The first error was that we hadn't added the ship to the controls list. We also had a problem because we didn't double click to create this code. We had manually typed it. So we've created our ship. We're pretty happy with that. I'm just going to see what we should be doing next. So we're going to consult our chart. So we've created our ship. All right, so we're moving on to creating our aliens. So I'm just going to tidy things up a little bit. So we've got our form load 1. I'm going to shift that up a little bit in my file. And I'm going to replace this one that we figured out wasn't correct. And that's looking a little bit cleaner. So there we go, create ship. And next up is private void. It's not returning anything. Create aliens. It's just going to run away and create me some aliens. So there is the declaration for our method. Now we need a place to store our aliens. We're going to make a big grid of them. Like if you've played Space Invaders before, you know that the aliens sit at the top of the screen, and there's a kind of rows of them, and you kind of battle your way through the rows until you get them all finished off. So we need a place to store those rows of aliens. I'm going to do something that's not really advised, and I'm going to make a global variable. Okay, now a global variable is something as opposed to a local variable. So a local variable lives inside of a method, yeah, and it's only accessible inside that method. You can't access it from one method to the other. And if you want to, you have to do some kind of special things to do with arguments, parameters. So we're going to make a global variable to keep things simple, and I'm going to make a list. Now, we've talked about arrays. We haven't really talked about lists, but lists have a couple of advantages. For example, I don't have to define how big my list is going to be right at the start. So I'm going to make a list of whatever size, and it just kind of expands and contracts depending on what I'm doing with it. And that's quite useful. And there are a couple of other things that are really useful about it as well. If you want to find out more about these kinds of things, you can go to the internet, ever helpful. We can go say C# list. And let's have a little look. So there is MSD in Microsoft. Let's go and have a look at what it says in here. So this is the list class. So declaring a list, we say list, and then what you want a list of, so the type, and then we've got a couple of brackets afterwards. Okay, that's quite interesting. So that's a constructor that builds the list. And then these are all the methods that we can use with our list. So we can add to the end of the list, add an object to the end of the list. That's quite useful. We're going to use that. Clear removes all elements from the list. That might be useful. Let's have a little look. Find, that could be quite useful. So find searches an element for an element that contains or matches the conditions defined by the specified predicate. So basically, you can find whatever you're looking for in the list. That will be quite useful. For each, we're going to use that. Performs a specified action on each element in the list. Definitely useful. So you can see there's some really useful things in here, and we can kind of scroll through. Remove. Removes the first occurrence of a specified object. That's going to be useful. There are lots of useful things, and we can kind of find out about them by doing a little bit of research. So I'm going to make this list. So I type in list. We're like, okay, yes. And you can see there it's kind of helpful. It's like, oh yeah, you need to have those double kind of arrow things. And we remember from the documentation that the constructor, it was like list of type. Okay. So TF type, we're going for, what are we looking for? A list of picture boxes. Yeah, because our aliens are going to be picture boxes. We're going to call this, we'll go list aliens equals new list of picture boxes. And then we put the brackets after it. Cool. So there is my first global variable. It is a list of picture boxes called list aliens. So now we actually have to make the method that uses this list. So here's my create aliens method. So what we can do, what do we want to do? We want to make a new alien, right? So we're thinking, okay, we're wanting to make specifically rows and columns of aliens. So if you think of them like a big table, so at the top left you've got row 1, and it will have a certain number of aliens, and then below it there's another row of aliens, and then below it there's another row of aliens. So maybe if there's 9 on each row, there are 3 rows, we're going to have 27 aliens in total. So what we can do is we can use loops to create this, because it's kind of repetitive. Yeah, we're making something again and again and again. We kind of know how many times we're going to do it. So if we know how many times we're going to do it, we're going to use a for loop. So for the y equal to 0, I probably need to initialize that. For int y equal to 0, semicolon, y has got to be up to less than 2, so it'll be 0, 1, and then 2. Let's go less than or equal to 2. So that'll be 3 rows, and we're going to, each time it runs through the for loop, we're going to increase y by 1. That's what that y++ means. Okay, so for int y equal to 0 at the start, and we're going to increment y by 1 each time, and we're going to go up until it's equal to 2, no further. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3 rows of aliens. Now, how many aliens do we want on each row? I reckon we want, let's go, x equal, start at 0. X is going to be less than or equal to, let's go 9, which should put us at 10 aliens. So we'll end up with 30 aliens. Nice round number. X plus plus. Boom, boom. Okay, so these are what we call nested loops. So what will happen is when create aliens is called, it'll come through and it'll go, okay, for y equal to 0. So y is equal to 0. And then it comes through and it's like, okay, so y equals 0, and oh, we've got another for loop. Okay, so in x equals 0. Okay, so in x equals 0, and it runs this until x equals 9. Yeah? So y is still equal to 0. X is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, and it will create 9 aliens on the first row, and then it will come back out and it will go, okay, I'm going to increment y to 1. So we're now on this second row, and then it will go in here and go, oh, for loop. So x equals 0, and then it will run whatever's in here 9 times, and then come back out, and we increment this again. So now y equals 2, so we're on the third row, and again, it'll run through that for loop. So it creates the row and the column for our aliens, and we can just create our alien in the way that we kind of created our ship up here. So if you wanted to, you could be a little bit sneaky, and you could copy and paste that, and you could go picture box ship, new picture box alien equals a new picture box. I'm going to tag this as an alien. Yeah. So in future, if I want to find out what kind of object it is, I can go, oh yeah, what does the name equal? Oh, it's an alien, so it must be an alien. Very useful. What size is it going to be? We need to change these to alien as well, otherwise that would be a mess. So alien name equals alien. Alien size is 20 by 20. It's the same size as the ship. We're pretty happy with that. Should be a different color, I reckon. Let's go with green. Green, yellow, light sea green, lime green. Very nice. Location. Now the location is going to be a little bit different. So remember the screen is an X and Y grid. The top left of the screen is 0, 0. Yeah. So if we wanted to put them up the top kind of left of the screen, we'll start it off a little bit away from the left, so maybe like 50 away from the left. And we're going to make that, so we're doing X, Y, by the way. Okay, so first we're doing the X. So 50 away from the left-hand side, and I want to make it change every time my y runs through. Okay, sorry, every time my x runs through. So if my x is 0, we'll go say 30 times x. So if x is 0, 30 times x is 0, so it'll just be at 50. If x is 1, it'll be 30 times 1 plus 50 equals 80. And if x is 2, it'll be 30 times 2 is 60 plus 50, it'll be at 110. So you can see we're placing the aliens 50 away from each other, okay, which is quite useful. And we'll do something similar for the y. We'll go 50 plus 30 times the y. You'll make sure your brackets are correct. And we want to add our alien, our list. So our list is called, if you remember, list aliens. We want to add him in there. List aliens dot add. And what are we adding? We're adding the alien there. Boom. Okay, so we've added them to the list. We've added them to the controls list, so they should appear. Let's give that a red hot go. Creating ship. We know all about that. Oh, something's gone wrong. We should see a bunch of aliens up here. Let me have a little play around and see what's going down. Now you, being extremely clever, have figured out why this isn't working. As have I, being somewhat clever. So what I didn't do in my form load, I've got my create ship running, but I've never called create aliens because it's commented out. So create aliens never gets run. So we've got to make sure that is called. Okay, let's save that and give it another try. There it goes. So there are my aliens, and you can see we've got 1, 2, 3 rows, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them. So 30 in total, just as we kind of planned it. Mucho success. Okay, so now we need to figure out where we're going next. So let's just consult the all-knowing flowchart. So we've done our create ship, create aliens. We now kind of get into these game timer, slow timer thing. So we've got two kind of strands that we're working with. We're going to focus first on the game timer and get that working. So now this is where I go over to my design side of things. So what I can do is I can come over to the left-hand side, and there should be in here, I can search for it if I wish, a timer. And I can drag that into my onto my design, and you can see it pops down the bottom. Now if I click on it, on the right-hand side are the properties of that timer. So enabled, we probably want to make true, and if you're running into problems, that might be something that you need to kind of check out. The interval, we're going to leave at 100, so that's how often it runs. And I believe it's run in milliseconds, so there are 1,000 milliseconds in a second, so 100 milliseconds means that it's going to be run 10 times a second. You can also rename it, so I'm going to name mine lowercase g, game timer. Cool. Now, we talked about double-clicking on the form to get the form load. Now, we need to do the same kind of thing to get the code for game timer. I double-click on it. It takes me through to my code, and it's inserted a method called game timer tick. So every time that game timer ticks over, i.e. every 100 milliseconds, I'm going to run this code. And we kind of can see how that kind of would work, because we've created our flowchart. We know that every time it ticks, we want to run through this stuff here. And then it'll tick again, and we run through it again. And then it ticks again, and we run through it again. It moves the aliens, it moves the bullets, and all that kind of stuff. So we're pretty happy with this so far. So the game time is ticking. We now need to move our aliens. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so game time is ticking. We want it to move the aliens. We haven't created this yet, but we're going to chuck it in there because that's what we're about to do. I'm going to save that. So I've created my game timer tick. by double clicking, and now I'm going to create a method called moveAliens. Doesn't need to return anything, it just moves those aliens. And there we go. Okay, so moveAliens, moveAliens. Now, if you mess up the spelling, it's going to mess up your program. It's really important. So that capital makes a difference, and it should be the second word that is capitalized, not the first word. So that makes a difference. The spelling makes a difference. So it's got to match up perfectly. So moveAliens. How are we going to move these aliens? So picture box is kind of what we're working with. We're working with a particular picture box, though, aren't we? We're working with our alien picture boxes. Now, we made our alien in here, and then we added them to a list of aliens, yeah? And that we made a global variable up the top, yeah? And that global variable is quite useful because we can now access it throughout the file. We can access it in this method as well. Oops, and I shouldn't have copied the whole line. I should just have copied list aliens. Okay, that's all I want. So I'm going to use this list to access all of the aliens that are in the game and do something to them, i.e. move them. So what I'm going to do with this list is I'm going to go through it and do something with every item inside it. So I'm going to use something called a for each loop. For each item, for each picture box, that is, and we're going to call a temporary name for these picture boxes as we cycle through. I'm going to call them alien. For each alien of type picture box in list aliens, get that in there. I would like you to do something. I would like you to do something to that alien. Okay, so every picture box inside list aliens, I want you to do something with it. What do we want to do? We want to move it. So its location, we've got a really nice attribute called the left attribute. So if I go alien, which is the temporary name I've called them, alien.left, and that will set the left parameter to a particular position. I can go alien.left equals alien.left plus 10. Yeah, so its current left-hand position plus 10, and we can make its new left-hand position. There's an easier way to do that. We can just go plus equals 10, and that basically adds 10 onto itself. Okay, so whatever value I've currently got for alien left, I want you to add 10 on top of that. That's what that plus equals done. Okay, so let's have a look at what that does. Got to get rid of that. That's annoying. Oh, and look, my aliens are moving from left to right. So they're being updated every time a tick, and they're shifting across, and it's a beautiful thing. And where are they going? Oh my God. We've got to stop them when they hit the wall. Okay, and that's going to be our next task, is kind of bouncing them off that wall. So if they get to that, we're going to have them bounce back. And we need a few things to get that done. Okay, so in order to make this happen, we need something to control whether or not they're moving to the right or moving to the left. Okay, so it's kind of a two-stage thing, and we have a very useful data type for that kind of scenario. We have a data type called a Boolean, and in C# it's indicated by bool, and we're going to go movedir. And movedir I'm going to set to false to start with. So I've put a little comment in there to explain what movedir does. Movedir controls the direction of the aliens. False, moving to the right. True, moving to the left. Okay, so we've set up our global variable, which all of these methods can access, which isn't great programming practice, but it's what we're going to be doing. And now we can do something like this. We can go if, let me get that off there, if movedir is equal to false, then we should be moving to the right, and there's the code for that. Else, it's going to be true. It's only two options, yeah? Else, and I need my little brackets, else alien.left plus equals -10. -10. Okay, so here it's going +10, it's moving to the right. Here it's going -10, it's moving to the left. So if move direction equals false, we know that it's moving to the right. And if it's true, we know it's moving to the left. And we're pretty satisfied with that. Now we've just got to make something that checks which direction it should be moving in. Like, is it inbounds? Has it hit the right-hand wall or not? And if we think of our flow chart, that was the kind of big check that we did after we moved things. Yeah, after we moved the aliens, we needed to check that they were in bounds. So we can go, for example, if alien.left, which is already proving itself very useful, is maybe greater than or equal to this dot width, which is the width of the display. If it's greater than that, then it's hit the right-hand wall. Yeah? So if it's greater than that, we know that it should be moving back the other direction. Yeah, it's hit the right-hand wall, it should be moving left. We know that move direction should equal true. Okay? And we can go here, else if alien.left is less than or equal to, well, we don't need to go this dot width because that would be the right-hand wall. The left-hand wall, remember, is just 0. So we can go if it's less than or equal to 0. Move dir should equal false. It should move back the other way. It should move and come back to the right-hand side. Let's check that out and see if it works. Got to get rid of that. Okay, so there are my aliens. They're racing off and they are going to be hitting the wall. And what are they going to do? They are going to bounce back. It's genius. Okay, they're a little bit kind of off kilter though. They've kind of realigned themselves, but not really. And that's actually something for you to have a little think about, a little ponder about, and to fix. Okay, so I'm not going to fix that for you. You are going to fix it for yourself. But we've got the move happening. We're pretty happy with that. So good result. And we're moving on. Okay, so we're going to look at our flowchart just quickly. So we've done our move aliens. We've checked if they're in bounds. We've reversed the direction. If they are out of bounds, we're on to our move bullets. Now our bullets get created when we have a key press event. Okay, so we need to do our create bullets and our move bullet methods. Okay, so I'm going to do my create bullet up here. So private void create bullet. Now this is going to look quite similar to our create ship scenario. So similar, in fact. I'm going to copy and paste this code because it will be much faster. So picture box ship, no, picture box bullet is going to be a new picture box, and that bullet dot name should be shell. It's a bullet shell, and we are going to call that bullet, and this one's got to be bullet as well. And bullet, lovely. We're adding bullet into the controls list. Okay, so now we can just go through and kind of update some things. It doesn't need to be the bullet shouldn't be as big as the ship. Okay, so you can choose how big your bullet should be. I'm going to make mine 2 wide and 4 high, just so it's got a bit of length to it. Looks kind of lasery. Bullet back color. Let's see what we've got. Alice blue. Hardly know what these mean. Antique white. It's an old style bullet. Bullet location. Okay, now that bullet location will most likely have to represent, I would imagine, will come from where the ship was positioned. Okay, so we're going to have to base it on the ship position. To reference the ship position, we need to reference it. Now we've got our create ship method here. We create our picture box ship, but it's only visible currently inside this method. We need a way of seeing that outside of the method. So we're going to do, now usually we do this a slightly smarter way by using objects and things like that. but it's too complicated, so we're going to do it a slightly simpler way, but more not great programming practice. We're going to make another global. So, global picture box. We're going to make a global picture box called ship equals new picture box. Boom, boom. Okay, so we've made this global variable called ship, and we've got a local variable called ship, and they don't conflict with each other because they're at different scopes, so they're kind of at different levels. But what we can do is we can, after we create our ship, we can do a sneaky little bit of code. We can make our global ship equal to a picture box that lives inside the controls list, which we've added our ship into. A picture box in that list that has a named ship. Yeah, and we're going to find that object or find that picture box, and we're going to put it inside another box that we've made called ship, which is a global variable. Now we will be able to reference this version of ship all over the program, okay? It's a little bit of a not great programming solution, but it's a pretty good solution. It's good enough for us at the moment because we need to reference that ship because we're creating a bullet and we need to know where the ship is. So now when we're looking for that location, we can go ship.left, and it's like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Oh yeah, ship. Yeah, there's a global variable up there called ship. I know what you're talking about. Ship.left plus, or so we can put it at the left of the ship, but we probably want to put it at the center. So we want it not just ship.left, but plus ship.width divided by 2. Okay. So the X position is going to be at the left of the ship and then also added on half the width. So it's going to be right in the center. Now in terms of the width, we can do something a little bit easier and we can just go ship.top. Easy peasy. So bullet location is now set to the center top of the ship. It's antique white, its size is 2 and 4, it's got a name shell, which is useful. We've added it to our controls list, and we should be able to see bullets be created. Now we've got our create bullet thing. We also need to uncomment it up here. When I click on a spacebar, I want to run create bullets, which I had kind of written before but was not using because I knew I'd need it later. Create bullet, cool. Now we need a move bullet thing, okay, because we want to move our bullet up towards the aliens. Alright, so we've got our create bullet, now we're going to move it. Okay, so we've created our bullets, and now we want to move that bullet. So I'm going to create a method, a little minion to do that for me. Now we've moved things in the past. We moved these aliens around, and we were pretty confident about how to do that. We use this for each picture box alien and the list of aliens. We want to check what direction you're moving, we want to check if you're over the edge of the screen, and we want to do things to you, and we do it to each of the aliens and the list aliens. Now we don't have a list of bullets, but we do have a kind of list that they're inside, and that is this controls thing here. Now unfortunately, controls also has aliens in there. It also has a ship in there, so we need to be able to determine what's an alien, what's a ship, and what is a bullet. So what we can do is we can use the name of the object that's in that list. So we can inspect all of the objects one by one and go, okay, what name have you got? If it's equal to shell, you're the guy that I'm looking for. But if it's not, we're just going to move on. Okay, so what we can do is go if, we need to go for each, and actually, why am I typing this out again? We can just copy and amend. So for each pixel box, and we're just going to call this B, in controls, I want you to do this. For each pixel box, And this is just a temporary name. This name doesn't really mean much. It's a temporary name that we call each object as we get it out of the list. And we need it because we need to refer to those objects. So I need to go, for instance, to go, hey, object, what's your name? Does it equal shell? And I've done that really badly in kind of pseudocode. So we go if b.name equals shell. That looks a little bit better. Okay, if b.name equals shell, then we want to deal with you. Otherwise, we're moving on. We're not fussed. Okay, so if it does equal shell, what do we want to do? We want to move it. We want maybe to go b.top plus equals 10. We're going to move it by 10, or we're going to move it a little bit faster. We can play around with that. Okay, so if it's a shell, we're moving it up. Okay, let's have a little look at that and see if it works. There we go. Any bullets coming out? No. No bullets coming out. What's going on? So the bullet's not coming out. We're going to try and figure out why. So we've made our move bullets command, our minion, our method. It's, well, do we ever ask it to actually do that? We move our aliens, but we don't move our bullet. We don't even actually call the minion, call the method and say, hey, can you run your code for me, please? So it's never getting called. We've made it, but we've never called it. That's probably, I suspect, what's going on. Creating chat. Thank you, Mr. Annoying. Where are you? There you go. Okay, so hitting spacebar. Oh, and there's my bullet, but it's going in the wrong direction. I made it a positive instead of a negative. That was a bit silly, but we kind of know what's going on and it's working. It's a good thing. All right, so that should be a minus, or you could make that plus equal to negative 10, which we have in the past, and that kind of makes it correct. So now we've got our bullet moving. It's moving in the right direction. We probably want to do things like maybe, I don't know, remove it if it gets past the aliens and out the top of the screen. And then we're going to move on to things. Let's check our Space Invaders chart. So we're moving ship, moving bullets. We need to move our ship, check if it's in bounds, and check if our aliens have been hit. So we've got a little bit to do, but we're about halfway through, which is pretty good, maybe a little bit over. Okay, so I've added a couple of extra bits in here. I don't think we need to go through them too much, but so I've gone if b name equals shell, we're happy. If b.top is less than 0, i.e. it's above the top of the screen, we're going to remove it from the controls list. Okay, controls.remove, and what we want to remove is the picture box we are currently looking at in that controls list. Otherwise, b.top, that bullet that's been fired, we can move it up, or we can move it up the screen. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. Now we want to know how to move the ship. Private void move ship. Okay, so we want to move the ship depending on the direction, and that is a key press event. You'll remember key press events from such fun things as creating bullets. So you remember at the top we said if E key char toString is spacebar, we're going to create a bullet, and we know how to kind of work that. But if it's A, i.e. left, we want to move the ship to the left. Yeah, we want the ship to move in a constant velocity to the left. So we're going to use a global variable called global ship direction, and we're going to go, so ship integer ship dir equals 0. So 0 is going to be motionless, If it's a positive number, it's going to be going to the right. If it's a 20, yeah. If it's negative 20, it's going to be going to the left, okay? So that's like the x direction. Positive x out to the right, negative x out to the left. But we're going to set it to 0. Now, when my user hits the letter A, we want to set ship_dir equal to A is going left, so negative 20. Now 20 is the velocity, or how much it's going to be moved every time a tick. Now you can play around with that speed by playing with the ship direction variable. Okay, so if key char is that, we're happy with that. If key char is D, we're going positive, and if key char is S, it's back to being motionless. Okay, that's kind of the stop, S for stop. So we're pretty happy with that. So if they hit an A, the ship direction is going to the left. If they hit a D, it's going to the right, it's positive. If they hit an S, it's going to set it to 0. So the ship direction is going to remain motionless. Okay, so we need to move our ship with the game timer. So we're going to have to not forget, like I forgot last time, move ship. Every tick, it's going to check. It's going to move it not at all if it's they've hit S, but it's going to move it according to the ship direction. Okay, so what we can do is go ship.left equals, or plus equals, we know about that now, move dir. Okay, why does that give me sass? Int and boolean, ship.left plus equals move direction. What have I done here? And I've got a feeling I know, yeah. Ship_dir. Did I go move dir? I did. See how easy it is to make mistakes, gentlemen and ladies. Okay, ship_dir, there we go. So ship.left plus equals ship direction. So depending on what direction it is going in, it's going to move around, and hopefully that'll work. Let's give it a try. Ugh. Okay, so A, moves me left, D moves me right, and S stops me. Spacebar, bullets. We are having win after win. Okay.